Good morning.
Good morning.
Or I guess it's afternoon at this point. All right, now it should be on. Yeah? Okay. Heavenly Father, I just thank you for this time that we have gathered to commune with each other, to commune with the Spirit, and the way of the Spirit being in the midst of community, that we have all come here via different backgrounds and different experiences, and even different times that we woke up this morning with a different life, Lord, from each other. Some of us saw sickness this morning. Some of us saw a slowness. Some of us saw excitement, Lord, but we all convened here together. And I just pray that our hearts will be open to your Spirit moving and be open to each other. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Please have a seat. If you don't mind, I'm going to sit down with you. Some of you do know that I hurt my knee this past week. And so some of the activities that I was hoping that we would engage in had to be on pause so that I could spend some time just resting and recovering. But I am not as well as I was hoping that I would be, so I'll be going to the doctor tomorrow. But apart from that, please allow me to be able to sit down in the midst of you. So I first want to thank my mom for coming with me, and I especially want to thank Chantal for allowing me for choosing me to be with you all this summer, to bring a spiritual reflection. And I was, because preaching is not something that I would say that I do, but it's like speaking. I can say that I can speak and I can reflect. I do that a lot in my own life, and I lead other groups I facilitate, so I feel comfortable using that language. But another challenge was just being within the liturgy of the Lutheran Church. I did not grow up with any type of high church liturgies or anything like that, and so being told to preach on this text, and I think you all have options. So that's just different. So I spent a lot of time just asking God, okay, how does this speak to today? And what is it about this particular text that I should bring forth? And so I pray that you will walk this journey with me, and I'm actually going to design it more of a discussion, because it is a very common, I think it's a very common text that many of us are used to hearing about the Good Samaritan. And as I was pondering in myself about, okay, what is God saying in this text that can be applied to today? I really felt the Holy Spirit just to focus on a particular character within this story, but to also to see like what about this text is really speaking in the setting. So I would like for you all to participate with me, and there are a few questions that I would like to pose, and then we can just go from there. Does that sound okay with you? And the text was already read this morning, so I don't feel like that I. Verse 27 and Spanish reads, como respuesta al hombrocito, alma su Señor tu Dios con todo tu corazón, con todo tu ser, con todas tus fuerzas y con toda tu mente, y ama a tu prójimo como a ti mismo. These verses, I think we as a church, and we as a church in a larger Christian context, have heard for centuries, to love God with all of our being and to also love our neighbor as ourselves. I think what gets often confused is the expert of the law that stood up to test Jesus. He did it in a way of wanting to perhaps trap Jesus. But I think today we ask in a sense of, how do we understand, or how do we live out this love that we say that we have for God and Jesus in a world that is so full of corruption, so full of hurt and pain? How do we truly love our neighbors as a testament of our love for God? And the first question that I would like to pose to you all is, within this parable that is often cited as the Good Samaritan, let's just get straight to the point. What is the point of this parable? You can shout it out if you want. Love is all you need. Thank you. What are other points that for you this parable in particular speaks to?
We should love people that
are different from us. Thank you. What are other points? Treat people the way that you want to be treated. Thank you. Is there one last one? I'm sure there are many, but is there one last one that wants to be spoken?
I think it's sometimes human nature to pass by and just turn your eye, and so it's also kind of a study of human nature. People would pass by, whether it be for fear or.
Yeah, so human nature to just pass by, like whether it's fear.
I think loving that story, he does a lot of stuff at his own cost to meet someone else's need, and so I think there's a call towards generosity in that.
Yeah, loving people is expensive, because as we read, the Samaritan who stopped spent 2 denarii, which is 1 denarii was 1 day's worth of wages. So thank you for pointing that out. Was there anything else?
I think it's a challenge, because the Jews and Samaritans were in essence enemies. And so the point of the story is to see your enemy as the hero.
That's beautiful, seeing your enemy as the hero. Thank you.
And if you are in a hurry, or you are so caught up in your own life and you are thinking of your own to-do list, then you might not even notice that person. Not to mention take time to go out of your way and give your money, but you have to be seeking it out.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. One of the people in this parable that spoke to me the most was the Levite. And some of you kind of mentioned what was going on, perhaps, with this Levite. But Jesus, when he responded to the expert of the law, Jesus responded from a religious perspective that past the one who was in need were religious leaders. It was a priest and it was a Levite. Jesus could have offered the hero of the story, or could have offered other characters, such as the woman with the 2 mites. She could have showed up somehow in the story, or Jesus could have offered a child walking along as well. But he chose a priest and a Levite. And to me, that really spoke to where we are today. There are so many churches, there are so many people of faith that are standing up but not sure how to stand up in the midst of a busy schedule, in the midst of the to-dos. The priest has a very clear role within the temple, the Levite as well. The Levite is tasked with the busyness of leading the ceremonies, making sure that things are in place. And to me, that spoke very clearly of what a lot of Christians find themselves doing. Like, we find ourselves planning for events, we find ourselves trying to get to church on time, we find ourselves with different potlucks or even ministries of music, or even trying to reach out to the community. But what about the people that are hurt and bruised and who are bypassed because of our busyness and wanting to commit ourselves to what we think God is calling us to do? But what Jesus is really saying is, what I really have called you to do is to have the ministry of presence, is to be with those who are hurting, to give up what you think is so important, and to be with those. And for a call of generosity, I love that, the call of generosity. And so the next question that I ask of you is, if there were a character that you were to identify with within the story, which character would that be? We have the priest. We have someone who is tasked with leading lots of people. who is the special one chosen of God. We have the Levites, which is a particular sect within the Jewish people, who are called with particular tasks to perform. With the Samaritan, who is not considered by the Jews to be a real Jewish practitioner or the ones who are called by God, but who of themselves clearly identify as being part of the church activities as much as I can. I want to help plan. I want to help grow the church. But when I was in San Antonio, Texas, it's been 3 weeks now, but when I was in San Antonio, Texas, for a theology course from a Latin American lens, it really opened my eyes to how much I pass by those who are in need. Right there in San Antonio, Texas, we spent time at the Migrant Resource Center, which is one of the places where people who, after they have been detained from crossing the border or from crossing into the United States, they go to these places, and then within a 48-hour period, they are literally either bused or flown or picked up. It's like a hub to get them to the next point within the judicial system. So from the Migrant Resources Center, they connect them, they help them make the connections to other people in the U.S. for whom they're going to go to then start the court process. Within this place, we got to hear many different stories of why people came over. There were groups of people from Congo who were there. There were groups of people from Haiti who were there. And as we were talking to the leaders, they said that the main thing that people misunderstand about the rhetoric around people that come into the United States is that they're all Mexicans and that they are all robbers, or that they're all, for some reason, some type of bandit. But what the stories of these people that are not told is the hate, the crime, the corruption that they're running from. And one of the questions that people had was, can it be so bad that it's worth being separated from your families, that it's worth risking your life to run from whatever it is that you're running from? Or is it worth the risk of running into the unknown of all of these bad things that can happen just for the possibility of something better? And what I have learned is that same judgment are the same questions that we live here in the United States. If I were to identify myself as the Levite and I'm busy with doing church, I'm also busy with trying to make my life better in some way. Either it's trying to get that next job, or whether it's trying to get that next promotion. And I think what Jesus is calling the Levite out on, as well as the priest, is that busyness. And it's that busyness of being preoccupied with the things of the temple, the things of God that we think that are better, when really it's making those sacrifices to hurt those who are literally hurt, literally are being abused, literally being oppressed in some way. And just like the Samaritan, it doesn't necessarily mean that we spend our time actually making them better. It could be that we get them to the next place and we leave our money or our time or our connections to make it possible for healing to happen. And I'm not sure about what you all feel like you are called to do in our current political climate, because there are many, many situations that can call our time. Not only do we have the situation at the border with people that are wanting to look for a better life, but we also have those who are being trafficked. We also have those who are needing homes. We also have those here in our community that are just looking for relationships. And one thing that I focus on is at the very end of this text, where Jesus tells the expert of the law to go and do likewise. to go and do likewise of the Samaritan. And it's very interesting because Jesus doesn't explicitly say what about the Samaritan needs to be focused on. But what the expert of the law responded when Jesus said, which of these do you think actually did the will of the Lord? And the answer was the one who showed mercy. I think that is the lesson for us to carry forward with us, is to think about how is it that I can show mercy in all of these different ways. And one of the ways that I'm most being here
Thank you, Joy. Will you please stand so that we can affirm our faith by the words of the Nicene Creed? Creemos en un solo Dios, Padre Todopoderoso, Creador del cielo y